My mother comes first. Thomas Beckett said it with Jada's hand still on the serving spoon. For half a second, nothing in the kitchen moved. Only the thin stream of water Thomas had left running into the glass pitcher beside him kept moving. Jada looked at her husband, then at Marjorie, who was standing near the counter with the salad bowl she had brought from home. What did you just say? Thomas shut off the faucet. I said my mother comes first. Marjorie's face tightened. Thomas. But he kept his eyes on Jada. 10 minutes earlier, they had been finishing their usual first Sunday dinner routine, the one they'd followed for years. Jada was checking the vegetables. Thomas had forgotten the water until the last minute. As usual. Marjorie had complained that Jada always made too much food, as usual. Then Thomas had mentioned next Saturday. Not asked. Mentioned. He had told Marjorie that he and Jada could spend most of the afternoon helping her look through the things she might keep if she moved somewhere smaller. Jada had turned from the stove. I'm working Saturday morning. I know, Thomas had said. We can go after. Jada had waited for the part where he remembered she had never agreed. It had not come. Now the serving spoon felt heavier in her hand. Your mother asked you for help, Jada said. She needs both of us. Marjorie set the salad bowl down. I asked you to come look at the storage room with me. I didn't ask Jada. Thomas glanced toward her. Mom, that's not the point. It sounds a little like the point. Jada set the spoon beside the stove and dropped it. She did not want Marjorie defending her. That would make the room worse. It would turn a question about Thomas speaking for her into a contest neither woman had asked to enter. She kept her voice low. You can spend Saturday with your mother. Thomas exhaled through his nose. That's not what this is about. I know. You're making it sound like I signed you up for something. You did. It's one afternoon. Jada looked at him. That was the part that stung almost as much as the sentence. Thomas was not shouting. He was not trying to humiliate her. He looked frustrated, almost injured, as if she had misunderstood something obvious and decent. My mother's trying to make a major decision about her life, he said. She shouldn't have to wonder whether asking for help is too much because I'm married now. Marjorie folded her arms. I'm not wondering that. Thomas ignored the interruption. Jada felt the old instinct rise in her. Finish the vegetables, put the food on the table, let everybody sit down, come back to this later when nobody was hungry. She had done versions of that before. Not this version. I never said you shouldn't help her. You're acting like I have to choose. No, I'm asking why you made my choice before I got one. Thomas's expression changed. Not anger exactly. Something more defensive. Because she's my mother, Jada. There are things I'm not going to make her compete for. Marjorie looked away. Jada stared at the table beyond the kitchen. 3 plates. 3 water glasses. 3 folded napkins. She had set them without thinking. For years, First Sunday had meant nobody needed an invitation. Marjorie came. Jada cooked because she liked cooking. Thomas pretended he had remembered the water before Jada reminded him. It had never felt like a ranking. Until now. Jada reached for the dish towel and folded it once between her hands. Thomas stepped closer. Can we just eat and talk about this after? Jada looked at him. Then she looked at Marjorie. The food was ready. The table was ready. Everything about the room was asking her to sit down and help make the evening normal. Jada set the towel on the counter. She was no longer sure that sitting down would mean what it had meant an hour ago. Jada picked up her phone from the counter and slipped it into her bag. She reached for the light jacket hanging near the kitchen doorway. Thomas watched her. You're leaving? Yes. Before dinner? Jada looked at the table once more. I'm not sitting down like this didn't happen. Thomas rubbed the back of his neck. That's not what I'm asking. It's what the room is asking. Marjorie shifted beside the counter. Jada, you don't have to leave because of me. Jada met her eyes. I'm not leaving because of you. I know you didn't ask him to make plans for me. Thomas stepped closer. Can we not turn one bad sentence into the whole marriage? Part of Jada wanted to answer him. Another part knew she was too hurt to make anything sound simple. I need to go. For how long? I don't know. She opened the door. No suitcase. No announcement. She simply stepped outside before anyone had touched the food. Jada walked a familiar route without deciding where she was going. She kept her phone in her bag until the tightness in her chest eased enough for her to breathe normally. Back at the house, Thomas stood in the kitchen staring at the doorway. Marjorie picked up the serving spoon Jada had left beside the stove. Then she set it down. "Don't," Thomas said. "Don't what?" "Make this bigger." Marjorie looked at him. "You already did." Thomas pulled out a dining chair, but did not sit. The food was cooling. "You don't have to leave too. I'm going home." "Mom, I'm not sitting here having dinner with you because your wife walked out." She reached for her purse. "You can eat if you want." Marjorie left without touching the meal. By the time Jada returned, the house was quiet. Thomas was covering leftovers in the kitchen. Relief crossed his face before he could hide it. "You came back." Jada set her bag down. "I live here." Mom left. "I figured." Thomas closed the container in his hands. "Can we talk now?" Jada leaned against the counter. "Not tonight. I don't want us going to bed like this." "Neither do I. But wanting it fixed tonight doesn't make me ready to fix it tonight." He did not argue. The next morning, Jada came into the kitchen dressed for work. Thomas stood with coffee near the shared calendar. The first Sunday of the next month still carried the recurring entry, "Dinner with Mom." Thomas followed her gaze. "I can talk to her. Maybe we skip one, and then no." Jada stepped closer to the calendar. "I'm not saying I'll never have dinner with your mother again." "Then what are you saying?" "This doesn't happen automatically anymore." Thomas frowned. Jada looked at the familiar entry. "If we have dinner again, I want it to be because we chose it." She removed the recurrence. Not Marjorie's name and not Thomas's. Just the assumption. Jada picked up her bag and left for work. Behind her, the first Sunday of next month stayed empty. Marjorie asked Jada to come by the next afternoon, and for the first time in years, Thomas was not part of the arrangement. Jada stood outside Marjorie's door a second longer than necessary before knocking. Marjorie opened it in a soft gray-blue cardigan, a mug in one hand. "Come in." Jada stepped inside. "Thomas didn't ask me to." Marjorie's eyebrows lifted. "Good." There was no edge in it, and that made Jada more nervous. They sat near the kitchen. "Coffee?" Marjorie asked. "No, thank you." "Yeah, I'm fine." "That usually means you're not." Jada almost smiled. "Almost." "Thomas told you about the dinner schedule." "He told me it was gone. Suspended." "That sounds more official." Jada folded her hands. "I don't want to keep showing up every first Sunday because we're all afraid of what it means if we don't." Marjorie nodded. "That part won't understand." Jada waited. And I don't want Thomas putting me first in his marriage." Relief hit Jada too quickly. Marjorie continued. "But I'm not going to tell you a wife always comes first either." Jada's shoulders tightened. "I didn't ask you to." Not out loud. Jada sat back. "Marjorie, I'm not trying to fight with you. It feels a little like you are." Marjorie looked down at her mug. "Then maybe we've both been too polite for too long." Jada had expected this conversation to be about Thomas. Instead, Marjorie looked at her directly. "Do you know, I thought about stopping those dinners before any of this happened?" Jada stared at her. "Why?" "Not because I disliked them." "Then why?" Marjorie looked toward the kitchen. "Because sometimes I couldn't tell whether you wanted me there or whether you were just very good at being Thomas's wife." Jada felt the words land. "I invited you." Thomas usually confirmed the time. "Because he's your son." "Exactly." Jada leaned forward. "You think I didn't want you there?" "I think you cared about making sure I never felt unwelcome." "That isn't always the same thing as wanting me." Jada stood, then regretted how dramatic the movement felt. "I cook for you. I remember what you liked. I changed things when you didn't want something too salty." "I know." "Then what did you think that was?" "Care. Maybe habit. Maybe both." Jada looked back at her. "That sounds unfair." "It may be." Marjorie set down her mug. "Last spring, when dinner had to move because of your schedule, Thomas called me. At Christmas, when you needed me later, Thomas texted me." Jada remembered. Those choices had felt efficient. Gentle even. "I didn't want you to feel rejected." "I know. But sometimes I wondered if you liked me, or if you were committed to making sure Thomas never felt pulled between us." The room went quiet. Marjorie's expression softened without retreating. "And before you ask, yes, Thomas was wrong to volunteer your Saturday. Yes, he was wrong to say what he said. But I'm not going to tell you what your marriage means." Jada swallowed. She had come expecting Marjorie to reject the place Thomas assigned her. Marjorie had done that. Somehow it made nothing simpler. At the door, Jada paused. Did you ever want those dinners? Marjorie held her gaze. Yes. Jada waited for more. None came. She stepped outside with a question she hadn't planned to ask. For the first time, she was no longer asking whether Thomas had made Marjorie too important. She was asking whether Marjorie had ever been hers to lose. Thomas was already in the kitchen Saturday morning, dressed in a dark sweater and jeans. His coffee sat untouched near the sink. I'm heading to Mom's in 20 minutes, he said. Jada took the lunch container she had packed from the refrigerator. Okay. He waited. I told her you're not coming. Jada straightened. You told her that? I told her I was the one who said we would both go. I told her you never agreed. Jada rested the container on the counter. Thomas looked tired, but he was not asking to be praised. She said she knew that already. She does. I know. Jada twisted the cap off a bottle of water. Then why are you telling me? Because I should have said it to her myself. Jada took a drink. What are you helping her with? The storage room. She wants to figure out what has to go if she moves somewhere smaller. And you're doing it yourself? Yes. You could hire people. Thomas gave her a brief look. That's not what she asked for. The answer mattered more than Jada wanted it to. Thomas picked up his keys. I'm not going to ask you to come later. Good. He left without turning the correction into an apology. At Marjorie's house, 2 storage bins were already open in the spare room. You're early, she said. Traffic was light. Jada working? Thomas set down his jacket. She had plans. Marjorie looked at him. Plans you know about. Plans I don't need to manage. Her eyebrow lifted. Thomas crouched beside the first bin. Before we start, I need to say something. That sounds dangerous. I volunteered Jada last week. Yes. You didn't ask me to. No. Thomas looked at the box between them. That commitment was mine. Marjorie waited. The mistake. The commitment. Her expression changed slightly. All right. That's it. What would you like me to do with it? Nothing. Good. Then start with those. For the next 2 hours, Thomas sorted what Marjorie handed him. He moved boxes where she directed. He did not call Jada. When Marjorie changed her mind about one stack, he moved it back. Near noon, she said, You know, Jada probably would have remembered which drawer half this came from. Thomas glanced over. She probably would. Then maybe it's useful she isn't here. What does that mean? You have a habit of seeing competence as availability. He almost defended himself. Marjorie saw it. I'm not saying she never wants to help. I'm saying those are different things. Thomas nodded slowly. I'm trying to learn that. That will have to do for today. When Thomas returned home, Jada sat at the dining table with her laptop open. How is it, she asked. We got through about half the room. How is she? Tired. Stubborn. Jada almost smiled. So normal. Thomas nodded. She didn't ask where you were after the first time. And you didn't explain me? No, good. He wanted to change instead of turning one decent afternoon into a verdict on their marriage. Jada looked back at her screen, but the words had blurred. Thomas had done something different. Not enough to erase what he said, but enough to make the next question harder. She still did not know whether anything between her and Marjorie had ever belonged to them without him. Marjorie's message came Wednesday afternoon while Jada was cutting strawberries at the kitchen counter. I'm making soup tomorrow. If you're free, come by around 6. No Thomas. No mention of first Sunday. Jada read it twice. For a moment, she considered taking the phone upstairs to Thomas and asking what Marjorie meant. She stopped herself. That was exactly the habit they were trying to leave behind. Jada finished slicing the strawberries, then looked again. The invitation should have felt like what she wanted, direct and ordinary. Instead, she wondered whether Marjorie had invited her because she wanted Jada there, or because both women now understood they were supposed to prove their relationship could exist without Thomas. Jada typed, Is this just us? Marjorie answered, Yes. Thomas came into the kitchen and reached for a strawberry. Jada, move the bowl. Those are for tomorrow. For what? Your mother invited me over. His hand dropped. Okay. That's all. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Are you going? Jada looked at the message. I haven't decided. Thomas nodded and reached for a glass instead. He did not explain why his mother had chosen soup or say Marjorie must miss her. The next morning, Marjorie sent, Bring nothing. I have too much bread already. Jada smiled. She caught herself wondering whether the invitation was simply another version of their old family habit. By late afternoon, she said, "I'm sorry. I don't think tonight is a good idea." Marjorie replied, "All right. No pressure. No question." Jada felt relief, followed by disappointment. The next day she called. "I wanted to make sure you weren't upset." "I was disappointed," Marjorie said. Jada went quiet. "But you said it was all right. It was all right for you to say no. That doesn't mean I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't trying to reject you." "Then what were you trying to do?" Jada stood beside the dining table, one hand resting on the chair back. "I didn't know if you actually wanted me there." Silence. "I invited you." "I know. Apparently that wasn't enough." "That's not fair." "Maybe not. But I don't know what you're asking me to prove anymore." "I'm not asking you to prove anything." The answer came too quickly. Marjorie heard it. "Aren't you?" Jada looked toward the blank first Sunday space on the shared calendar. "I don't want us doing things because we think we're supposed to." "Neither do I." "Then how am I supposed to know?" Marjorie was quiet. "Maybe you don't. Maybe I invite you because I like you, and because you're my son's wife, and because we've eaten together for years, and because I made too much soup. Maybe all of those things are true." Jada sat down. She had wanted something cleaner. "That sounds like obligation." "Some of it probably is." Jada flinched. "That doesn't make the rest fake." Later, Thomas found her rinsing the strawberry bowl. "How did dinner go?" "I didn't go." "Okay. That's all." "You told me not to manage this." Jada dried her hands. "Your mother thinks I'm asking her to prove something." Thomas leaned against the counter. "Are you?" Jada wanted to say no. Instead, she remembered the relief when Marjorie did not push and the hurt when Marjorie let her stay away. "I don't know." Days passed without another message. Jada told herself the silence was what she had asked for. No obligation, no automatic closeness. By the fourth day, it no longer felt clean. It felt empty. She had gotten the distance she thought would show whether their closeness was habit. She had not expected Marjorie to respect it. By Monday evening, Thomas had stopped asking whether Jada had heard from his mother. Jada noticed because he used to ask small questions without thinking. Now, he carried his plate to the sink and left the subject alone. "You can ask," she said. Thomas turned. "Ask what?" "Whether she's called." "Has she?" "No," he nodded. "Then I know." Jada leaned against the counter. "That doesn't bother you?" "Of course it does." He dried his hands. "But if I call her and ask why she hasn't called you, we're back where we started. You're making it sound easy. It isn't. You made this mess, and now you get to stand back and say it isn't yours." Thomas took a breath. "The thing between you and me is mine. The thing between you and my mother isn't only mine." Jada looked away. That was the distinction she had wanted him to understand. Hearing it now did not make her feel better. "If we stop speaking, that affects you." "It does." "And you just going to watch?" "What do you want me to do?" Jada opened her mouth and stopped. She did not want him calling Marjorie, explaining Jada, or asking his mother to try again. Wanting the result without his involvement was what made the answer harder. "I don't know." "Neither do I." The next morning, Jada saw Marjorie's name while scrolling through her contacts. Her thumb stopped. She could have called. She kept scrolling. At Marjorie's house, the week moved on without ceremony. She finished sorting another shelf and changed her mind about two things she had planned to discard. She did not call Thomas to ask whether Jada was upset. Thomas stopped by briefly to return an item he had taken home by mistake. He hesitated at the door. Marjorie noticed. "Say it or don't. Have you talked to Jada?" "No tomas nadie." "Okay." Marjorie studied him. "You want me to make this easier for you?" "Yes." "At least that's honest." "I'm not asking you to." "Good." That evening, Thomas came home quieter than usual. Jada was at the dining table working. "You saw her," Jada said. "Yes." "How is she?" "Fine." "Did she say anything about me?" Thomas looked at her. "She said you two haven't talked." That's it. That's it." Jada closed her laptop halfway. "You could tell me what you think she meant." Thomas shook his head. "No, no. If you want to know what my mother means, ask my mother." The words were firm without being cruel. Jada looked down at the screen. "What if she doesn't want to talk to me?" Thomas's voice softened. "Then I can't fix that for you. And if she does, I still can't fix it for you." For the first time, Jada saw what stepping out of the middle cost him. Thomas had spent years knowing where everyone stood because he was always standing between them. Now he was giving that certainty up. Later, Jada opened her messages with Marjorie. The last line was still all right. She typed, "Hope the sorting is going okay." Deleted it. "Too safe." She typed, "I've been thinking about what you said." Deleted that too. It sounded like a meeting. Jada put the phone face down. She had spent days asking whether Marjorie had really chosen her. Now another question bothered her more. If Marjorie stopped choosing her for a while, did Jada still want to choose Marjorie? Jada found Thomas in the kitchen Thursday night, rinsing 2 plates with a dish towel over one shoulder. "You haven't asked me about your mother all week," she said. "No, and you haven't asked her about me." He turned off the water. "No, you could." "I know." Jada leaned against the counter. "You're very committed to this." Thomas dried 1 plate. "I'm trying to stop doing something I thought was helpful. Translating everyone. I decided that if 2 people I love were uncomfortable, it was my job. I thought I had to make the discomfort go away." Jada watched him. "That sounds new." "It is. I don't like it. Not fixing things. Not knowing what happens if I don't." Jada sat at the small kitchen table. Thomas joined her. "You thought we'd always be close," she said. "I thought I could make sure you were. That's not the same thing." "I know." He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. "I used to think if Mom felt secure and you felt included, then I was doing everything right. And if either of us was unhappy, I tried to solve it before it got big enough to matter." Jada gave him a look. "That worked well." Thomas let out a short laugh. "No." The refrigerator hummed behind them. "I keep waiting for you to tell me she misses me," Jada said. Thomas looked at her. "She probably does." "Probably." "You asked me not to speak for her." Jada leaned back. "You could say you want us to fix this. Edo. But wanting it doesn't make it mine to arrange." Jada felt the familiar irritation rise. "You keep saying that like it lets you off the hook." Thomas shook his head. "What I said to you is mine. What I assumed about your time is mine. What I did with Mom's place in our marriage is mine." He paused. "But whether you and she are close, because you actually want each other in your lives, that belongs to you too." Jada looked away. "What if she decides she doesn't?" Thomas's expression tightened. "Then I have to live with that. You be okay with it?" "No, I'd hate it." "Then why not prevent it?" "Because I think that's what I've been doing for years." Jada sat with that. She had expected, eventually, a sentence that would make things simple. "You come first now," or "I was wrong about everything." Thomas did not give her one. He was asking her to live without a replacement rule. Later, Jada sat near the living room window with her phone. She scrolled through old messages from Marjorie. Grocery questions. A recipe. A picture of a plant Marjorie thought Jada might know how to revive. One message from months earlier made her smile. "Do you still have that good mustard?" "Thomas hates it, but I liked it." None of those messages proved anything. Habit. Affection. Convenience. Family. Obligation sometimes. Warmth sometimes. Thomas passed through carrying a folded blanket. "Do you think your mother thinks I don't want her in my life?" Jada asked. His first instinct showed on his face. Then he stopped himself. "You'll have to ask her." Jada exhaled. "That line is getting really annoying." "I know." He kept walking. Jada opened a new message. "Are you free sometime this weekend?" "Too careful." Deleted. "I miss talking to you." "Too large." Deleted. She stared at the empty field. The easy choice would be to let the silence harden into a boundary. Call it maturity. The harder choice was to reach toward Marjorie without knowing if she'd reach back. No one could guarantee the answer for her. Jada sent the message before she could edit it into something safer. "I'd like to see you. Just us. No first Sunday. No big conversation unless you want one. If you'd rather not, I understand." She put the phone face down on the coffee table. Thomas was in the kitchen, close enough that she could hear a cabinet close. He did not come in. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Jada reminded herself that an honest invitation included the possibility of no. Her phone buzzed. "Tomorrow evening works." Thomas stepped into the room carrying a glass of water. His eyes moved to the phone, then back to her. "Everything okay?" She said yes. He stopped. "Okay." Jada waited. "You're not curious?" "Very. And I'm staying out of it." She almost laughed. "You make that sound noble." "It mostly feels uncomfortable." The next evening, Jada arrived at Marjorie's house without food or flowers. She brought nothing that might make the visit look ceremonial. Marjorie opened the door in a soft, neutral sweater. Come. For several seconds, neither woman seemed to know where to put her hands. Marjorie pointed toward the kitchen. There. Jada smiled. Yes. You always say no first. I know. Marjorie filled the kettle. Without a meal to prepare, the kitchen felt different. There was no task to hide inside. When the tea was ready, they sat across from each other. You said no big conversation unless I wanted one, Marjorie said. I did. Very considerate. Jada heard the edge. And suspicious. A little. Fair. Jada wrapped both hands around the mug. I think I made your invitation into a test. Marjorie looked at her. You did. I was trying to figure out whether you wanted me there for me. And I gave you the wrong answer? You gave me an answer I didn't know what to do with. Which was? Jada looked down at the tea. That you might want me there for more than one reason. Marjorie's expression softened without rescuing her. That's usually how people work. Jada gave a small, embarrassed laugh. I know that now. Do you? I'm trying. Marjorie nodded. That will have to do for today. Jada smiled despite herself. I don't want you in my life because Thomas says you belong there, she said. And I don't want you out of it because I'm afraid some part of us started as obligation. Some part of it did, Marjorie said. I know. Does that bother you? Less than it did. Marjorie lifted her mug. Progress. Across town, Thomas sat at the kitchen table with his phone beside him. He did not text either woman or call his mother to explain what Jada meant. The silence bothered him. He let it. At Marjorie's house, Jada finished her tea and stood. I'm going to ask you something. That sounds worse than tea. Would you have dinner with me next week? Marjorie's expression changed. Jada raised a hand slightly. Not first Sunday. Not because we should. Thomas doesn't know I'm asking. Marjorie was quiet. Jada forced herself not to fill the silence. You can say no. I know. Then Marjorie nodded. Yes. Relief moved through Jada, but it did not feel like victory. Okay. Marjorie walked her to the door. Jada? Yeah. I may still annoy you. Jada looked back. I'm counting on it. Marjorie smiled, small but real. Jada stepped outside, knowing the invitation had been accepted. What she did not know, and no longer needed Thomas to tell her, was what that acceptance would become. The next morning, the shared calendar still had no first Sunday dinner on it. Jada noticed while she was making coffee. Thomas came in behind her. He opened the refrigerator and stood there longer than necessary. You're blocking the milk, Jada said. I'm thinking. Think with the door closed. He shut it and handed her the carton. Neither mentioned putting the dinner back on the calendar. Thomas did not rename it or replace it with another recurrent plan. He did not suggest they should try again next month. The empty space stayed empty. Ordinary life kept moving around it. Jada went to work. Thomas handled his day. Marjorie did not become a permanent fixture in their schedule, nor did she disappear from it. There were calls some weeks and none during others. Sometimes Jada contacted Marjorie first. Sometimes Marjorie did. Thomas learned not to ask what every silence meant. Several weeks later, on an ordinary evening that was not a first Sunday, Marjorie came to Jada and Thomas's house for dinner. Jada had invited her directly. Marjorie had accepted directly. No one treated the evening like a ceremony. The meal was simple. Thomas carried the water over without being reminded and set the pitcher near the middle of the table. Jada noticed. Look at you. Thomas pulled out his chair. Growth. Marjorie sat down. Don't encourage him. Jada smiled and passed her a napkin. There were 3 place settings, but nobody had arranged them to mean anything. No special seat. No careful distance. No attempt to recreate the old first Sunday table exactly as it had been. They ate. Halfway through the meal, Marjorie reached for the serving bowl. She paused. Do you want this closer to you? She asked Jada. Jada looked at the bowl. Actually, leave it there. Marjorie frowned. You're going to make me reach across Thomas every time I want more? You said you were done. I said I was trying to be done. That's different. Apparently. Thomas looked from one woman to the other. A few weeks earlier, he might have moved the bowl himself, or explained that Marjorie always took seconds, or told Jada what her answer probably meant. Instead, he picked up his fork. Marjorie reached across him for the bowl. "This is inefficient," she said. "You'll survive," Jada replied. "Probably." Thomas laughed under his breath. Neither woman asked him to settle it. He did not try. The disagreement stayed exactly what it was: small, ordinary, unfinished. Marjorie served herself more food. Jada took another drink of water. Thomas kept eating. Nothing about the table proved that the family was fixed. Nothing guaranteed that every future invitation would be accepted or that every disagreement would stay harmless. Habit and obligation might still mix with affection again. But Marjorie was there because Jada had asked her. Jada was there because she wanted to be. Thomas was no longer the reason the two women knew how to remain in the same room. A few minutes later, Marjorie disagreed with Jada about the food again. Jada rolled her eyes. Thomas heard them both and stayed out of it. And dinner continued. This story is a fictional narrative created for entertainment, reflection, and education. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental.